Alright guys, here on the camper, and we have this. I replaced this gray valve already, but this black valve is stuck in the open position. I can't shut it, and I need to replace that. But what I thought about doing was replacing it with an automatic valve shutter, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is the Barker auto drain valve closer. So you just push a button and it's just supposed to just close. The push the button, it's got some significant features on here. You can get one for your gray valve and you can get one for your black valve. Since I just replaced the gray valve, I thought I'd try the black valve on this first. Since they were both, my stems are bent. I know that's probably one of the things that happen a lot on RVs, is that stem that you try to pull to release and close the gray valve or the black valve. That stem that you pull, you try to push it close, it usually bends. And so and I've heard numerous people have the same complaint, that they change this thing 1 or 2 times, maybe 3 times in the life of their RVs. And so I figured, well, if I'm going to spend the 80 to 90 bucks to replace that every time, I might as well go ahead and make the upgrade to this. And my wife and I talked about that, and so we decided to go with a auto drain on the black valve. And so if this works out pretty well, we'll go ahead and get the one for the gray valve. So this is the auto drain part number right here. This is the one we got. This is for a 3-inch auto drain. So most of the gray are the 1.5, and the black valves are the 3-inch drain. So this is for the 3-inch black water waste tank valve. So how this essentially works is that you just leave your slide on there, and this actually works for let's see here, I saw it earlier. It works for the 2 different types of valves, which is the Volterra and the Bristol tanks. So setup. So I have a Bristol setup because I'm in. So here it is right here. So the Volterra or the Bristol models, this will work with both. So that's what we're going to do here. Is we have a Bristol model, so we're going to do that for that. So essentially, how this works is that this automatic system here just replaces your valve stem, and so that way you can just attach this to your slide that opens up your drain, and so that way your black water tank and one for your gray water tank. But this is, and it has a switch on here as well too, and this switch allows us to notice when the valve is open. This will blink, letting us know the valve is still open, so or draining. And so we can hit that switch to close the valve, hit that switch to open the valve, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So all we're really replacing is not the whole setup. We're just taking the stem off and then placing this the cable and stem off, and then what we're doing is just sliding this over the stem that's nearest to the valve, and we'll show you that here in just a little bit. So now we're going to do a little open box here, and so this is just the 3 different parts numbers for the different ones that you might want to get. So this is the auto drain rocker switch assembly with the open valve indicator light. These are just the different part numbers here for different things. So, and that just kind of tells you what parts you have. You have the part A is the rocker switch, the part B is the auto drain opener, and then the part C is if you've got the gray setup over here. Okay, so like I said, this tells us this is good for the Volterra models and the Bristol models. Okay, all right, so we're going to go ahead and open this big old staple here. My wife is helping me with this. Just be careful, honey. Got it? Awesome. Just going to go ahead and open this up and see what we got in here. So this looks like the rocker switch with some wiring here. We'll find a good place to put this, mount this. My wife and I were talking about where we can place this, if we're going to continue to put this outside or thinking about putting this indoors. I don't know. We'll take a look at that and just kind of finalize that. Looks like there's maybe a mounting bracket in here somewhere, maybe. Alright, so look at that, and it gives us some installation instructions. Looks like there's some mounting brackets there or something, I don't know. We'll take a look at that in a minute. So nice clear instructions, that's always good. And then let's see what else we got in this box. Looks like the actual valve opener and closer here. So just to kind of get you a good look, there's the wiring plug-in to operate this from the switch. Okay, got some mounting screw holes for that. This is auto drain, part number, listing number. Turn this around so you can read that if you're interested in that. Serial number, all that stuff. Okay, let's get to installing this thing. Okay, now that I've gotten into this box and kind of opened up some of this wire for the switch, this switch is pretty good, but you know, it's not very waterproof, so I really don't want to put it outside. If I route it inside, there's some couple things, so you have to really think about where you want this switch and kind of do what I'm doing here. Just kind of like, okay, where do I want this thing to go? Because even this connected wire isn't very long. It might be 3.5 feet, maybe 3.5 feet of wire here. And there's a couple ways to extend that. You can cut these wires in the middle. You can go to your home improvement store and get the same gauge wire and some connectors in the middle and just kind of extend that wire as long as you want it. You could do that. So that way you have the same wiring setup and all that stuff. You're just kind of extending how much length you have here, and also you want to do with your power leads as well, because these probably got to go to your battery somehow. There's probably some connections in there, and there's a fuse line I saw in here too. So in this box, it's got a fuse in it too. Anyway, which is good. So all I'm saying is that, you know, once you have this mounted on your slide valve for your gray or black tank, whichever one you have. This is for a black tank because this is a 3-inch one. It will slide open the mechanism for our valve in our for our black tank. So I'll show you that in a minute. But once you have this mounted, you know, this is as much room of length you have right now to mount this switch somewhere. You can snake it on the inside somewhere, but you really got to think about how much length you got to where you can actually mount this. Because the idea probably is to mount this outside somewhere, but it not being very waterproof from the outside, kind of mounted underneath somewhere, you know, you're not really going to have it being waterproofed or sealed unless you get like a case or some sort, or make one, or 3D print a back for this or something. I mean, there is a back in here, excuse me. Yeah, there is a back part of that. So, but I wouldn't say that it's water sealed, you know what I'm saying, or weatherproofed. Unless you make it weatherproof, you can seal it with some caulking maybe, but then this button's still exposed to elements. You know, we've been to some really salty places like Corpus Christi, where there's salt all the time outside, and if you got this out there and this thing get covered with salt, you can imagine how degraded this gets pretty quickly. So so just keep that in mind. So our thought is to maybe put this on the inside, but the thing about that is that some of your dump stations, you know, you're not always going to have places where you can dump, like get connected with sewage. You may have to dump somewhere, and so if you got all your stuff on the inside like we do, you may not be able to access that switch if it's on the inside, if you got your camper all loaded up with gear and stuff. So just some of those things to think through. So you're gonna probably find the best place for you, your setup specifically, on how you want to set this up. But we're still doing some thinking, and we'll figure it out. Okay, one step you're going to have to do on these valves, if you got a Bristol version, you know, this is the pull cable that you would have to, with the stem that you normally would pull from underneath your RV, just to pull that stem, and it activates your gray valve or your black valve. This is from a gray valve. I wanted to show you how to disassemble this, because using it with your auto drain that you'll be using, you'll have to take this off. You have to disassemble this, and being underneath the RV, I wanted to kind of show you how to do that. So first and foremost, right here, it'll probably look more like this. Let me just kind of put this back together somewhat, so that way I'm at the starting point where you guys would more than likely be. You'll have something like this, and then you'll have this screw in here. You'll have you will have a screw right about there at the back end. You'll just unscrew that, take that little screw out with a Phillips screwdriver, okay? Just take that out, okay? That'll loosen this back end up if you loosen that up, okay? And then inside there'll be a valve with an Allen wrench hole, Allen key. You'll take that, see that little silver thing right there? It's got a hole in it. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. And then you're gonna take this little plastic piece off. There's a little push thing on here. Little push thing, you'll just push that out, and that'll come off like that. This whole thing will start to come a little bit looser. And once you got that Allen key turned, it's gonna release this cable. Okay, you're gonna pull that cable out like that. And then what you'll have to do is then you'll have to open this up like this to slide this piece out. Okay, see this is what I'm pulling on this side and that side. See how this is catching right here? I thought you gotta kind of spread it apart, and this will slide out. Okay, that'll slide out, and then you'll see this little Allen thing that has that was holding that cable. That was holding this cable in here. There's a little tiny hole here, and this little, you turned that nut earlier and you released it, and so that comes out of there. So this whole thing was what was activating this gray valve like this with the cable. Okay, sometimes this cable fails, or sometimes this stem on this end bends and we're unable to use this. Okay, so now we're upgrading to the auto drain. You're gonna have to take this off, and so this part was hard to take off. I mean, it should just screw off, but what I had to do was get 2 pliers and take this off. And so if you're underneath the RV, removing this will probably be challenging to do so, but it does come off. And so they probably put some Loctite on this or something at the manufacturer, so this wouldn't back off by itself. What you're gonna have to do is get 2 pliers, put one right on that threading to bite down. Remember, you're gonna need some of that threading, and then you need to use the other just to kind of turn this. This is gonna be slippery. I actually put some WD-40 on this threading on the top and the bottom, just to kind of help get some of that mineral oil in there to kind of loosen up that Loctite somewhat. And you just got to work it, and then it's eventually screw off. And this is what you're gonna need to put on that little bracket piece that slides down on there, and that bolt, which we'll get to in just a minute. All right, I just wanted to show you that you had to disassemble that cable system so that you can use this, so you don't have to replace this part and get one that just has a pull handle. So you don't have to do that, because this threading will work on this Bristol version if you have these underneath your RV. All right, just a quick little video on that. Okay, so this is my Bristol right here that I had to cut into to see, but see, there's a cable back end on this black valve, and see, I'll have to do some disassembly in here. You can see how much room I don't have. I know that my screw is on the top part, back here. See, it's not on the bottom, but it's on the top part. It'll be on the top part up here. I felt it earlier. It's back here, right there. This will release that. And then my Allen key is always going to be on the top too. There's some holes in here. I'll have to just drop it in one of these holes and see if my Allen is faced up, so that I can just pull my cable out after that. And so after I do that, then all this should become loose, and then that way I can get this plastic piece off, and then I can start working with my valve. Okay, so I finally got this cable free. That Allen wrench on that little cylinder, you probably able to see that. I almost got hit in the face while light, but I pulled that cable free with that Allen key. So I've got that done. If I can. The next thing I need to get that black piece off of there. Now that I got all that freed up off, and so I'm gonna try to spread it apart just to get it off, and then the next thing I have to do is get that cylinder that was holding the cable on. So I can't do this in video tip. I'll need both hands. Okay, so I finally got this piece free here. Right in here. See this little clip right here? That was just on this, sitting on this groove. You just have to get something in here to wedge this a piece, wedge this apart. I just got a screwdriver and I had a little chisel, and I just had both ends. I just kind of kept prying and prying, and just popped off, and that came free. So next, I got to get this thing twisted off of there. That's on the back end of the stem right here. And so once I get that free, I'll be able to attach all my pieces for my auto drain valve. So I'm gonna have to hold this down like this, and get these pliers in it like this, and just turn and get this free. So since they're both slippery surfaces, you're gonna have to kind of get in there, see if you can't catch some of that thread, but it'll eventually come free. So keep working at it, and I'll see you on the back end when we get this off. Finally got this thing to come off of here. It took some time, probably a good hour to get this thing off of here. I don't know how badly I stripped that threading on there. Hopefully it ain't too bad. Hopefully I can still use my nuts and stuff like that came with my system. I'll go ahead and close this right now. All right, let's see if we can get the rest of this together. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do with installing this is you're gonna put this bracket onto this auto drain. And so they have two sides. So if you're gonna use this for your 1/2-inch gray valve, you're gonna put this upside like this. So this will sit over your pipe that goes onto your gray valve. So your gray tank. So that 1.5 inches will sit on that. If you're doing your black tank, you're gonna put it like this, because your black tank's 3 inches, a little bit wider tank. So that's what we're gonna use. Is gonna use our 3-inch. We're gonna mount this on this back side. And one thing I want you to take note of is that you see these little screws that stick out the back of this thing. You want to make sure that this is not like this, because then you won't be able to line up your holes, because these two little screws that are sticking out the back of this auto drain thing. So just make sure you got this flipped the right way, so that way this little hole they got cut out is not keeping you from locking this all the way down. So we're just going to put it like this, and we're going to stick these screws that they came with, these little bolts, and we're going to stick them down in here. Looks like this is just going to be an Allen thing, so we're going to stick that like that. Find that hole there. Put this little locking nut on the bottom. Just like so. We're going to do the other side, and we're going to tighten them both down. And that's it on that. Alright, I'm just tightening this down. This is this bolt on the back part is just a 3/8 bolt, so I'm just holding that down. And Allen key I got size is 9/64 on the Allen key. So just tightening this bracket down on this. Turn it around here. You can see I've got the bigger end on the opposite side, because this will go on that 3-inch pipe that's associated with our black tank valve. So just kind of tighten these both down. I'm gonna tighten this other side down, and that should be it for the bracket. Okay, once you got that tightened down, it should look like this bracket that's on here, which should leave you these two bottom holes. Now, depending on which type you have, the Bristol or the Valterra, those two holes there will tell you which one you'll have. So whatever lines up, just use those holes associated with that. So, all right, let's take a look and see what we got underneath there. Okay, so it says to put this locking nut on. So I guess I didn't strip this as good as I thought I did. So that's a good thing. So you're gonna put this locking nut on here first. Just gonna screw that down on there. And then you're gonna use this little spacer bracket that they gave you. You're gonna mount this on here like, you're just gonna screw that on. It's threaded, so just gonna turn that on there. I don't know, I think the holes are the same size on each end, so put that on there like that. And it talks about having enough space, enough space at the top of the thing. Here, I'll show you. And then you can adjust this nut, is what it talks about, the height wise, how much space you're gonna have at the top. So let me grab the thing. Let me grab the thing. So the thing we're gonna have to do now, I'm just kind of prepping this. So the next thing we have to do now, and since my valve is opening up this way, so I'm gonna put my Valterra like this. Sorry, not my Valterra. I'm gonna put my drain valve like this, so it will be like this. So I'm gonna take these that screw off there and the one up the top, take those screws off and put my screws through these holes at the bottom of that bracket. Actually take this whole bolt off, and that washer, is that a washer or is that part of the bolt? No, that's part of the bolt. So take this bolt off, this one off too, and then I'm gonna slide this over top of those bolts and then slide it on there. So that way this would operate that way. And then see where my spacer is up here? That's all got to line up right. And then there's a bolt that goes to the top of this hole into the spacer. See that hole there? And there's a hole at the top of this where my finger is right there. It'll sit on top of there, and that bolt will sit on top of there. And then then I'll be wiring this thing. So that's what I'm doing next, okay? So bolt through there to the top of that, making sure I got enough space. It's said to have, I think, a 3/16 space. You can only do that once you got it actually on here. So you have to put this on first and then figure out your spacing at the top, okay? So let's do that. So for these bolts, they're 7/16. So I'll have one in the front, one in the back end. And it's best to use, these wrenches instead of like an adjustable wrench. You could use that, but when you get up on this top one up here, the one at the top, if I can show you, it's gonna be hard to get up in there with like an adjustable wrench. It'll just be easier just to get it with a wrench that's the right size. And just take it from my experience of having to be down here with a wrench and an adjustable wrench and a pair of pliers, because that is hard work right there, because there's not a whole lot of room to turn your wrist and stuff like that. So a good size, they have those adjustable crescent wrenches or ratcheting wrenches. That would be great, but this one doesn't have a ratchet inside of it, but this will be good for what I have, for what's going on right here. So also, if you're loosening this, I've got my valve closed right now. I have this all the way closed, but just keep in mind, if you take these bolts off, this will leak some. So they say it's best to do this when your tank is dried out, but I don't have that luxury. I've drained the tank, but it's not dry. So what I'm saying is you'll probably want to put a bucket under here, and as you're loosening this since this is the black tank, you don't want to be underneath it. So don't be because as soon as you start loosening this will probably leak a little bit, okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, I got the two back bolts off of there. Didn't see any leakage, so that's good. So those two bolts are off. I'm gonna slide this piece on here now, and should be good to go. So again, for this auto drain, should slide right over those bolts there. I won't be able to do this with one hand, but that's where it goes. And that, see that top hole? That'll go right about there. So, all right, let's do it. Okay, so I'm running into a little problem that's causing a little flush problem. This thing's not running flush when I got the bolts off of there. And the reason that I found that out to be, just slide my bucket over, is that you see this little design thing right here, this little lip. But this little lip right here is causing, it's not causing it, it's causing it to be not flush. So this right here, I'm gonna have to shave this down, this little extra thick plastic right here, so that way this little piece right here, when it's on the back side, it's not keeping it from getting flushing and causing my screws not to tighten down. And so I'm gonna have to shave that down with my box cutter knife thing I got here. Where did I do with it? Anyway, just get a box cutter, shave that down, work on that. Just be careful. See, I've just shaving that plastic down. So it's just like this little bit of a lump right there. You see how that's kind of like protruding out? It's not making it flush. Well, it's all the way around. So right here is where I'm gonna put mine. So I have to just taking a box cutter and just getting underneath that plastic and just shaving that down and making it a little bit more smooth. Okay. Okay, so I've got that pretty well shaved down now. All that right there. I just kind of shaved it with my box cutter, so it's a little bit more smoother. So let's see if that fit is a little bit better. I'm gonna put this up here. All right, so that is a lot better fit. You see that's a lot more flush, top and bottom. Now that I've got that on there, which is good. On there, I'm just gonna tighten this down. I was just checking to see, to make sure that this is flush all the way underneath here. And it is going all the way to the top. All right, so as you're tightening those bolts down, this is a great place to make sure that you got the proper spacing between here. And it says 1/8 of a space to 1/8 of a space to a 3/16. So 1/8 to 3/16 space between here and here. So mine's a little snug, so they say you can adjust that by just tightening that down a little bit more, kind of giving you a little bit more space. So what did I say? 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. So just a little bit of space as you're tightening this down to make sure that you're good to go there. Okay, so just check the spacing on that, and you're gonna put your bolt in there, and then you should be good to go. Put your bolt at the top there, secure that. Make sure you got your bolts at the bottom and at the top tightened in there, and it should be good to go. And then now all we need to do now is just wire it. Okay. Okay, so we figured out where we're gonna put our switch for our auto drain. This switch here, because we wanted to kind of be out of the elements, and we wanted to kind of be accessible on the outside, just in case we don't have a place where we can go inside the camper and dump if we're moving and stuff like that. So I put this on the inside. I'm gonna put this on the inside here. Just kind of mount that right about there. And then my battery's right there, and you see that little drop down hole. I'm gonna put all those wires together and funnel them all the way down there, because my black tank's back down there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm extending all of my wires, because this auto cable only came with, like, I don't know, 3 to 4 feet of just wire. So what I did is I bought just some same type of gauge wire, which is 16 gauge wire, and I got about the same colors I can get, so I can just kind of extend these out. Just clip each end. Just make sure you got one of these nice handy dandy wire strippers and crimper, and so all you're going to do is just clip that wire and I spliced in this one already. You're gonna get some of these butt ends, and you can get these at a pack in your home improvement store. Just make sure you get the same gauge wire butt ends that you're gonna use to extend these. So I've got these. That's all you pretty much do. Pretty much you're gonna do is just cut the wire, strip it down to a 1/4 of an inch. Put this on. Sorry, it's hard to do with one hand and filming. And put that on there, and then clip that in, and then just extend it with the wire that you have. So we're gonna need about 19 feet for us. So this one's exactly about 20 feet. This is about $6 I got at home improvement store, and so that's all we're gonna do is just extend the wires out, so that way I have this wire switch that'll go all the way to the black tank auto drain valve controller back there. So that's what I'm doing right now. Okay. Got it. All right, so next, now that I extended everything, I just put some tape pieces in the midst of all this just to kind of hold all of my lines together, because I'll be snaking this through. So I just about a foot or 2 feet, every 2 feet I put some tape just to kind of hold the lines together so they don't get snagged as I snake this through where I want this. And so that's what I did here. As you can see there, just kind of tape to get, just putting tape around there and just make sure I got all my lines together as I'm snaking this through here. So you might want to do that. You don't have to, but it just seems to help for me. Okay, so now I'm just feeding this cord down in the hole that was already here. That's primarily why I chose this spot. And so I'm going to continue to feed that through. What I did have to do for me, because that hole was kind of really taken up with a lot of space, is that I had to undo one of my cables from my battery just to kind of make a little bit more room to get the initial start through there. So you may have to do that as well. So, and I just disconnected that, so I'll have to reconnect that in a second. Okay, so now that I got all my cable flipped through, I'm at my switch right there, right about there or so. I'll make some room for the next switch if I do the gray water tank. Got all my cable down here, so now I'm just going to run this the length of that, and this lip here, or one of these lips here that runs length where a lot of other cables are being already ran. So I'll do that here and I'll show you. Okay, so for my power and battery leads, I've got these on there. These are little heat shrink wrap deals that I put for my battery leads, and so you just get a lighter and you just melt that down on there. This is actually a 12 gauge one, 12 to 10 gauge. They didn't have the right size 5/16 to 16 gauge. It's just an odd setup. So, but these eyelets do work over the battery posts, because I have a lithium-ion battery, and that's the bolt that goes down into the battery. So I had to have 5/16. So you want to look at that for your battery leads. So these little eyelets I got at a auto parts store. This heat shrink wrap is going to kind of help secure this wire in here, because it's a smaller gauge wire. It's 16 versus this 10 to 12 gauge. So I'll bite on this down with my crimper just to kind of get some good contact, but it's not going anywhere because of the heat shrink. So just keep that in mind. That's kind of what I went with. Also, I got these little cable ties here, just to kind of get some of those cables maybe attached to some other cables that are underneath there. You'll probably see there, just to kind of keep them more secure so they're not dangling or fall out or something. So just something like some cable ties you can get from some places. I've got two different type or colors here, and see if that'll help just kind of keep things in place as I run this. This is our 4-inch cable ties, and so they're outdoor rated, so I figured I'd give them a try. Yeah, so this is why tape is good, because it just helps make snaking this stuff through easier. So I'm just about here. I'm gonna keep putting this up on this lip and zip tie it probably to those, so that way they don't pop out with the other cables. And then here's my unit. Here's my male end that I've been snaking through, and this will go to that female end there. Make my way through that lip there, And then I'm going to come through underneath here, probably there's a cable up there. I'll zip tie it to that and then make it nice and snug to that right there, and that should be it. So I'll let you know what it looks like here in just a second. Okay, so there's my wire. Got it zip tied there. I got it zip tied up in there. And I push my excess just kind of up in that little lip back in there. And then I just connected my male and female end to my auto drain. So now I'm going to hook up my power, and then I'm going to test this and see what we got. All right, so I'm going to hook up my two leads here. It says that the black goes to the positive and the white goes to the negative. So I'm going to do that. See, black positive and then white negative. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Here's my battery post there. So bolt down, black positive, white negative, and we'll get that set up here. All right, so tighten all my leads on here to my switch. All right, let's see, turn my battery back on. Let's do that, and let's give it a go. So say open and close, so it was closed, so let's see what we got for open. You gotta hold it down. I hear it operating mat there, so that's good. I got power. And then that blinking light tells me that it's still open, so let's close it. Here's stuff that was draining over there, so that's good. All right, so that's done. So let me get this thing mounted and this back on, I guess. This thing mounted up here. So my mount's gonna go right about there. That should be it. All right, let's get it in. Okay, got my switch mounted there. I'm gonna kind of clamp this wire a little bit. I'll just kind of put some tape around there so that way they're not just in the way. All right, got that cleaned up a little bit, wired up. And so, turn the battery back on here, make sure everything's back on. And then I'm just gonna open this one more time, make sure I didn't goof up anything pulling those wires.